Hello, and welcome to Level Up Stronger. The world is continuously changing at a very rapid pace. How can we all gain the competitive edge in our industries and thrive in them? What if you knew without the shadow of a doubt that self-education and access to forward-thinking experts in your field could catapult you towards success faster than ever before? The spaces we inhabit can inspire us, protect us, define us, and connect us, so we all play a valuable role in shaping their future. We plan to take a deep dive into various industries and careers. What are the future of the industries? What are the barriers to entry? And learn from the very people who thrive in them. We will take you behind the scenes to the people, products, and processes that keep industries thriving. In this podcast, we look forward to inspire and empower everyone to take thoughtful, educated risks and apply what we've learned in our lives so we can all level up stronger.
In today's episode, we will be speaking with Tiffany Lederle, co-founder of Level Up Stronger, the Vice President of Facilities Management at IEI. Tiffany has over 15 years of experience in facilities and property management. She is currently responsible for over 25 federal contracts totaling more than 200 million square feet of property, including military bases, federal courthouses, and office buildings. Tiffany is responsible for the day-to-day operating support of over 3,000 federal buildings. Her contracts include master planning, sustainability, building automation, and infrastructure improvement and repairs. She also plays an instrumental role in IEI's strategic planning and business development, both domestically and internationally. In this episode, Tiffany will share with us how she got into the facilities management field and how she has excelled in a role typically dominated by men. She'll share with us her tips to success, as well as some of the obstacles she's encountered along the way. With the recent pace of change, she'll also give us an idea of how she plans to prepare for the future and what this will look like for the workforce that accompanies her on this journey. Welcome to the show, Tiffany.
Hi, thank you. And I'm really excited that we are launching the podcast finally. This has really been 2 years in the making, believe it or not, in prepping for all of this. And, I'm really super excited that we're finally getting this going. So
I am so excited as well. We've had so many conversations and ideas. I was wondering if you could tell us a little about yourself and how you entered into the field of facilities and property maintenance.
I have been doing facilities and/or property maintenance since 2000. Really, it's longer than 15 years. I started in a company 2003, I think, doing environmental management of properties and like mold testing, lead testing, asbestos, and that kind of thing. From there, catapulted that experience into working for a contractor who did government contracting. Mainly did lead-based paint inspections for HUD housing. From there, we gained experience doing facilities or field service management for HUD. So we were actually managing thousands of properties in the state of Michigan in the early 2010 timeframe. We had, I would say, 2,500 properties in our inventory at any given time. And so the total of probably over 10,000 properties through inventory, managing, getting the property ready to be resold after foreclosure. And then from there, use that experience in property management and preservation of properties to launch our commercial property management. So in 2013, really landed our very first property management facilities contract, actually working with the Military Sealift Command. So we had facilities in Washington, D.C., Norfolk, and San Diego, and managing all of the Military Sealift Command's buildings and maintenance that they had there. And the rest really is history. In the last, 2013, so about 7-8 years, we have now added more than 30 or 40 contracts. Right now I have 25 active federal contracts, and we're managing everything from military bases to federal courthouses. And it's been super exciting, largely on the government contracting side. However, we're working on expanding that right now into full commercial facilities management as well. So we've gained a lot of experience and built a lot of experience from scratch in the last 7-8 years, and now have a team of, when I started with IEI, the company had, I think, 5 people.
Wow.
And today we have over 200 people. So that's really a transition from 2010 to 2021. That's 11 years. We've grown, to over 200 staff, really dynamic team. We really built everything that we're doing from scratch the hard way. And so my intent with Level Up Stronger is now to figure out a way to give back and help other people not have to take 10 years to find success in the industries that they're working in, because I think I'm passionate about making sure that people are able to get past the resistance of the natural resistance of leveling up and growing in their careers, maybe just a little bit faster than it's taken me over the last 11 years. So.
Wow, that really is an incredible journey, Tiffany. And it sounds like you've seen it from ground level through all, and I'm sure that's been a big value in your career path as you move forward, and establishing those things from the ground up, I'm sure was not an easy path.
No, I've literally done everything. I've done everything myself along the way. I was the person who was at one point trashing out houses. So yeah, I literally throughout my career took opportunities that were handed to me. Everything from, we had to gain the experience to be able to go after the projects that we wanted on the commercial side. We had to gain the experience to be able to capture the HUD contracts. And how do you gain the experience other than doing the work? So for a lot of years, like I spent a year and a half, 2 years in the field, actually being the one who was trashing out the foreclosed properties. We'll never do it again. I have lots of horror stories. That I think was valuable experience. And those are one of those spots throughout your life that, you overcome some major resistance to be able to level up to the next level. But I think it's made me a better, well-rounded leader today because I did have that experience. I didn't just land in a leadership position. I actually was one of the field staff at one point in time, and I think that was valuable in helping me understand where the technicians and the staff that we have at all levels are at and what their challenges are that they face.
Can you tell us, because I think a big obstacle for all of us is when we have those new opportunities, our first instinct sometimes is, I can't, or I've never done that before. So I'm sure you were in lots of those positions. And what made you say, I can, and that moment that you decided to go for it and have that attitude? Because I think that's a big challenge that we all know we can overcome those things if we can get past that first instinct and rise to that challenge.
That's hard because there are times where I think life puts you in positions that are really, really difficult. Like, doing the work in the early days for foreclosure management. Like I would come home covered in dirt, having been inside a house that was disgusting, come home and just be filthy and exhausted and ready to give up. And there were a lot of days like that. In general, I think that you just have to keep moving, because if you sit down and let yourself wallow in that for too long, it's really easy to stay there. And that's never, the longer you stay kind of in that mindset that something is going to be too hard or there's no pathway out, I think it's a detriment to your forward progress. It's 100% about the state that you arrive in every day, your attitude and what you're telling yourself, how you're showing up, what your focus is on. Because while I was doing those really difficult things, I put my focus on where do I want to be? What is it that I'm trying to accomplish? Why am I trying to accomplish? And really kind of driving myself towards that future goal. And I think that's the only way you can get through some of these difficult times, even in your life. I mean, it doesn't have to be career-wise. It could be anything, is making sure that you're arriving every day in a state that promotes positive forward movement, because there's always going to be difficult stuff in life, but suffering through it is definitely a choice.
Well, I am so glad that you stuck with it and ended up where you are today. That said, those challenges along the way, I am just curious, since you are in a field that is very much dominated by men, what kind of additional challenges have you faced along the way that may have been different from your male counterparts?
I think any woman who arrives in a leadership position often got there because you were very confident in your capabilities, creative in problem solving. But sometimes that comes across as, especially for a woman, those qualities that got you to where you are in a leadership position are often misinterpreted as you being bitchy. And so that's hard, because the same identical qualities that got you to where you are in a leadership position, being a strong-willed, opinionated, honest, willing to take on challenges and all of those things and stand up for yourself are often, in a woman, seen as bitchy, but in a man seen as something that is to be rewarded and, a good thing. And so that mentality has been really difficult. Also, not having a lot of women in the industry that I'm in, I didn't have any women role models. And so that was really difficult because there wasn't anybody who I could point to, especially in the early days, that I could point to and say, okay, that's who I want to exemplify because that's the type of qualities that I want to see. There just weren't a lot of women, even CEOs 10 years ago, right? And so, especially in this male-dominated industry, really it's trades industries, right? HVAC, electrical, plumbing, commercial facilities. There are not a lot of women at all in these industries. So I'm largely a woman who's leading an entire male-dominated team. And there are times where, that I have to be tough with a person because the society preconceives how women should be. That sometimes is difficult. But I think largely, and maybe it's a little bit of an ego thing, a lot of people are rooting for you to fail. And they're probably rooting for you to fail whether you're a man or a woman. I think if you just stick with the fact that your confidence and your abilities and to be creative and whatnot shouldn't matter, just keep making progress.
Imagine it probably gives you even more incentive to succeed.
It absolutely does.
When you have somebody rooting for your failure. So, and I guess it sounds like that is a time where your capabilities have been underestimated because you were a female. I'm sure that happens quite often to other women. And I was just wondering what you might share to encourage others who may be experiencing that same situation.
I actually am at the point now that, and I think it just comes with confidence as you really step into being a leader. I enjoy when someone underestimates me now. If I'm in an opponent situation, right, and you already are underestimating me right out of the gate, just based on my gender, I should be able to run circles around you because you are completely underestimating that your opponent has a brain and the ability to do things just based on gender. That puts you at a disadvantage, not me. So I think women need to, and I don't want to bash men here because there are a lot of men who along the way who have been very supportive of me in my career and the things that we're doing. I have the CEO of the company that I work for now is an amazing guy who given me a lot of opportunities. So I don't want it to come across as if that all genders subscribe to a certain viewpoint, because I've had a lot of amazing people along the way, both male and female, who have given me great opportunities. But I think that largely, if I gave anybody advice, it would be not to underestimate the people who are around you or you're up against just solely based on gender. That shouldn't be a qualifier. Gender doesn't qualify whether somebody's intelligent enough to outthink you, outmaneuver you. And so I think that your ability to overcome an opponent based on their gender, then you're putting yourself at a disadvantage.
Thank you, Tiffany. And it's good to hear that you do work for a company that's very progressive and forward-thinking and supportive. So hopefully that we continue to see more companies like that moving forward. So you've been in this field for over 15 years now. Mm-hmm. How have you seen the workforce change in those 15 years? And how has that affected your role as a manager?
I am very concerned about the workforce and where the workforce is headed right now. And it's largely why I felt very passionate about doing this podcast and working towards some training initiatives that we're working on. We live in a commercial space, right? So do commercial facilities management. And let's just talk about the HVAC industry first and foremost as an example. The HVAC industry is the vast majority of the staff or the demographic of who are HVAC technicians, especially on the commercial side, is getting older. So the baby boomers are retiring and we have even less people who are choosing to go into those fields. And I think we've largely known for the last 10 years that there was this transition happening as the Generation X encouraged their kids, and the baby boomers encouraged their children to go to college instead of going into trades, that meant less and less people were going into trades. And so if you look at the HVAC industry, the people who are qualified to do the commercial HVAC is a very small little sliver of people compared to the overall industry itself. And it's dwindling at a significant rate, the number of people that are going into the industry and then also have those qualifications. So it's becoming harder and harder for us to find the qualified staff. And so we have to come up with some significant outside of the box ideas for how we're going to combat that going forward into the future. One area that I am really focused on is if largely my entire population of staff are male, there's an entire half of the world, I think 51% of the world is female, that aren't even taking part in this industry. Why is that? Where are those women but able to do this work, and why are they not looking at this as an opportunity? I actually asked this question of a group of veteran women. I had been watching this Facebook group, and I was very interested in some of the things that I was seeing, largely a lot of them complaining during the pandemic last year that they were facing a lot of employment challenges and being able to provide for their families. And I have an entire industry that is in need of people, qualified people to do the work. So are there training programs that are enticing women to come do this work? I actually asked the question or posed the question on the Facebook group, why are there not more women in this industry? And I got a varied responses. I got some very amazing women stepping up and say, hey, I've actually been in this industry for years and excelled and did well. It was exciting. There was a whole nother subset of the group of women who largely had tried to make inroads into getting into some of these careers, and they were met with roadblocks, a lot of discrimination, a lot of sexual harassment and things of that nature. So I have two very polar opposite things happening. Women who lucked into or found companies that were very progressive. The other side of that, where you have companies who allow discrimination and sexual harassment to run rampant through their companies. And these were very real things that were happening on both sides. There are so many barriers to these women in general going and entering into these industries. If you're met with an industry or a potential trade where you're going to be sexually harassed by the male counterparts that are working in those fields, of course you're not going to want to be part of that field. But there are companies out there like mine who are progressive, run by women. And I think it's just not, things like that aren't tolerated. We appreciate the capabilities of all people, regardless of their gender. So I think largely we're going to have to figure out a way to overcome the gender bias where some of these things are concerned, and also help young people that are entering the workforce today understand that these are actual viable careers. These are not only viable careers right now, but they're extremely interesting careers over the life of the next 10 or 20 years. If you want to get into robotics, you want to get into AI, we have all of those things coming in this industry, and it's at the infancy of the industry. So if you got in today as a young person, you could jump in and help mold an entire industry towards robotic. We now have, and I don't know how many people spend any time actually looking at the commercial facilities industry, but largely the entire building is run off of an automation system. So we have computerized systems right now that literally run the entire building. And I think that there is a lot of improvement even within that industry. And those people are at high demand. Those are those HVAC technicians who grew into doing building automations because they liked the computer aspect of that job. You know, several of our HVAC technicians, where they either came out of the military and did something in automations, a field highly in demand, and it's well paid. So, I mean, if you were sitting at home wondering, okay, well, I'm mechanically inclined, right? I don't want to go to college because I don't want to have to spend 4 years, an extreme amount of money on getting an education. What else is there possible for me to do? The trades are full of some amazing things that allow you to not have to spend a fortune on a college education. And I'm not dissing a college education. I have one, but I think there's a lot of people that a college education just doesn't fit for them. They just don't excel in a classroom, don't want to sit through another 4 years after they come out of high school trying to get a college education. What else is there? There's an entire industry that needs help. There's an entire industry where you could go and intern. And we have some young guys who have come out of the HVAC program who we've coupled with some of these older gentlemen that are in that baby boomer era, right? And so they're learning everything from the older gentlemen that are on their team, gaining that mechanical aptitude from a commercial standpoint, while at the same time, they're actually better with the computerized stuff, right? So if I can marry someone who is really good at the computer and put the two together, it's a perfect team, because then we have a very well-rounded staff who have an amazing capability to keep the building functioning and forward moving into the future. So I'm excited, but I also know that we need people. We need people who are interested in doing this. And so largely the podcast is going to be spending a lot of time during the first season of episodes going through facilities management and what are the opportunities and what's the future. Because there's a lot changing from a technology standpoint everywhere. And we're really just at the cusp of getting this stuff started. And I'm super excited because I really think that this will hopefully bring to light or entice some more people to really take this industry and some of the things that we do, especially from a trade standpoint, realize that it is advantageous to go into these careers.
Thank you for those insights, Tiffany. And it does sound like there is interest in those careers moving forward if we can break down some of those barriers that go beyond just the job itself for many people to enter the workforce. From those insights moving forward, it sounds like there's a lot of unique positions that people would not associate with those traditional trades that may make these really interesting and appealing moving forward, and jobs that are different than people might envision those. So that awareness of how that field is changing and moving forward is an important step in ensuring that we have a workforce into the future. So it sounds like there's many facets to that as far as the skills or training itself, just so that people can envision this. And I know it will change moving forward, but from your point of view, what skills or training, whether that be formal or on the job, have most prepared you to enter into this field?
From a leadership standpoint, I think the on-the-job training was probably more valuable than book learning. I got my degree. I got my degree while I was working. I have a bachelor's in business. And I wouldn't trade that piece of paper for anything, because I think it was an important part of my progression. As a leader, though, I learned the most, I think, just by getting in there and slogging through and learning. Definitely spend a lot of time absorbing and doing research and learning additional things myself internally on my own. So a lot of that self-education, listening to other podcasts, listening to other experts or subject matter experts in the field of what I'm doing. I think that's an important part of it. I think there needs to be a healthy balance, though, because there needs to be the book learning. There needs to be the technical understanding of what you're doing, right? So if you're going into trades, you need that technical understanding, because there is a learning curve to everything that you're doing, and you're going to face some resistance, probably greater resistance if you don't have a healthy balance of both. But I also along the way haven't taken anything that has come my way at face value. I have a tendency probably overanalyzing a lot of what we do from every angle. I want to know what all of the pros and cons are of the stuff that we're doing. And I'm constantly, I think, learning. So we just hired a phenomenal engineer from a larger company. And so we're working together to implement some new predictive maintenance stuff that we weren't doing before. I face that as this is now my ability to learn even more from somebody who I'm working closely with, and then take that information and help me to level up to the next level, because now I'm learning something new. So I'm constantly, if I had to give advice to anybody, it would be constantly be learning, constantly be looking at ways that you can improve on a skill, because rarely even people who are subject matter experts in the fields that we work in are always changing. So you have to be looking for ways to constantly stay ahead in the industry you're in. What's next? What's next for facilities? Because if I'm just focused on what is happening today and not forward looking, I'm going to be left in the past. because there's a substantial amount of things that are changing as time goes on, especially right now with technology. It's going to be affecting every industry across all categories. And so I think you have to be mindful of that and stay ahead of, what is coming next and how can I apply technologies that are showing up in other industries into my own. Robotics, for instance. I'm super excited about the potential for robotics and the disruption of the industries that we're working in, especially like janitorial, because I think automation, robotics is going to be a huge game changer to the industries that we're in currently.
Thank you, Tiffany. So you've already given some advice to people who are interested in entering that field. I know you mentioned that there is a shortage in the workforce, and I guess I'm just wondering, given that, how would you recommend people prepare themselves? And are we seeing similar to a shortage in the workforce? Is that impacting the ability to get training or the amount of trade schools or access, or especially in remote areas? I don't know if you could speak in general, since you have projects in a wide area, how that might affect people and what recommendations for them to be able to start thinking about this or preparing themselves.
I think there's definitely the potential, if you're living in a remote area, that there may not be a trade school that is local to you. Most high schools, though, do have some sort of trades group within the high school that teaches you some trade and skill. So I would start there. If you're somebody in high school just starting out and you're wanting to start from that aspect, take some trade classes while you're there, especially if you're mechanically inclined. And whether that's man or woman, women are mechanically inclined too. We just don't like to admit it all the time. If there's not a trade school near you, what my suggestion would be is see if you can intern for a trade company. So there are HVAC companies, there are electricians and plumbers everywhere. So if you wanted to get into that, what I would do is start at the bottom and work your way up. So go ask to be an intern, take the lower level grunt job, right? And work your way up in a company. I haven't always been sitting as the vice president or executive level of the company. You got to start somewhere, right? Especially if you don't have an opportunity to go to a trade school. If you do have a trade school near you, the HVAC, let's just take HVAC as an example. The HVAC trade schools aren't that long. We're talking a year or two commitment, and it's generally at a community college. This isn't just young people starting out. If you are looking to start a new career, I started out college right after high school, and then I left college and started working for a while. I didn't start back to college until I was in my 30s to finish my degree. That your age doesn't stop you from, starting over, shifting careers, pivoting to do something new. I do believe that, especially right now, we're in desperate needs of more people in this industry. And so I would encourage anybody to reach out. We are going to be looking at starting an internship program, because I think that if you are not doing that, you're probably missing the boat on an opportunity to grow people into who you want them to be or who you will need in the future. Get some experience from the ground up. I think it'll make you a more well-rounded. Opportunities come in a lot of different formats. And sometimes if an opportunity is afforded to you, had I not taken the opportunity to do the HUD trash outs, I wouldn't be here. Right? Because the contracts that we were working on at the time were coming to an end. If I hadn't said yes to that and stuck with it until we gained the experience, we would have never been able to go after the HUD contract, which was a huge, huge contract. And that contract really catapulted me into an executive leadership position in the company that I'm in. So had I not slogged it through for a year and done that, I wouldn't have had this opportunity. And so I think that's really, it's take some opportunities that are coming along, also be educating yourself in your free time on how to make yourself better. Watch the YouTube videos. Jesus, YouTube is free. You can go on YouTube and learn anything. There is no reason. There's so much free education on the internet. We didn't have all of this when you and I were starting out. None of this existed. Everyone has such an advantage today in learning about any subject because it's really just at your fingertips. So there's really no reason for anybody to just give up and say, well, I can't do that, or that's outside of my comfort zone, or whatever. Go learn all about it. Learn every aspect of what you're wanting to do. And it doesn't have to be trades. It could be anything. We're living in a very exciting time for self-education. And I'm really looking forward to being a part of helping people figure out ways that they can level up stronger and develop those skills necessary to whole new careers. That for me is the exciting part of all of this, the contribution and the progress and being able to give back now that we've made it, right? I would have loved to have had a woman who sat here with me 10 years ago and was like, hey, here's exactly what you do. So it took me 10 years to figure this out, but I'm going to teach you how to do it in 20 minutes. So you can skip the 10 years of resistance, right? That to me is phenomenal. And we have a lot of really great examples in just about every career and industry that we should be able to tap into.
That is so true, Tiffany. And it is amazing the ability to get information when we wish to. And again, going back to that, accessibility does help level the playing field a little bit in some ways, because that information is available in different ways than it was 20 years ago. For those who haven't really considered a career in facilities management or a related trade, do you have anything you might like to share with them to envision a role for themselves?
More than anything, and I see these people a lot. I actually saw it this morning on a Facebook group. People are wanting to work in something they're passionate about, and the reality is it always takes me aback, because I'm like, okay, you want to figure out what your passion is. What have you tried to do to find it? Did you try anything along the way? Because I've had a lot of different jobs. I've had a lot of different jobs in the last 20 years. You try something for a while. If it's not something that you're passionate about, you always have the ability to reinvent yourself. There is nobody that's telling you have to stick with one thing. There needs to be a teeny bit of self-confidence and just a lot of leap into something, because sometimes it just takes you saying, fuck it, and leap forward into whatever it is, because I would have never done some of the things had I overanalyzed it. I think incremental changes and adjustments sometimes, like when you're in an industry, you might find that there's something that you are interested in and you chase it for a minute to see if it's something that you're going to be passionate about. I think a very small sliver of people in society born passionate in something. The rest of us have to grow a passion in something. And so it's okay to try on different things to see, whether something fits or whether it's something that you're going to like. And if you're not, it's okay to be honest with yourself. So I think you just keep growing the things that you're working on and keep evolving.
Thank you. And you had mentioned your leadership skills at the beginning. That is kind of a perfect segue into my next question. Outside of you, what are leaders in the field doing, or what could they do better to foster greater representation and diversity in the facilities management trades?
Diversity is going to be hard because, again, we're in an industry that is largely male dominated. You have to be open to breaking down the barriers and not looking at the things that would normally be a barrier to someone. Because again, I'm hiring to somebody's intelligence, I'm hiring to someone's capabilities, and the things that most people discriminate against have nothing to do with any of those things, right? So I think you just have to, as a company, make a decision that this is how we're going to be as a company. And so I think in general, by living in that space for so long, it's just an ingrained part of who we are. And I think that's exciting. I think as we go forward, though, in the industry as a whole, I'm going to have to find opportunities to find the people that I want to add to make the industry more diverse. I have no choice. If in an industry that is dwindling at the state that it is, I have no choice but to go out and look for areas where we currently don't have demographics becoming part of the industry. So if we're missing 51% of the population, or very few women in this industry, I need to, as a leader, go out and search for and promote women entering this industry. Otherwise, I'm putting myself at a serious disadvantage in the next 10 years. I need to go out and look for those areas and those demographics. I am going to have to think outside of the box. And we're seeing larger commercial entities doing the exact same thing. So, take a clue out of their playbook, coming up with outside of the box opportunities. They're going to those disadvantaged neighborhoods and promoting programs to get disadvantaged youth to take part in these careers. Right. So we're going to, as leaders, as we get bigger, we grow. And I would encourage anybody, you don't have to be a big company to do this. Go and support the local high school trades group. Go and support a local trade college. Go and support these programs that are helping disadvantaged categories of people find jobs in that group. And so I think, again, we as an industry are going to have to come up with those outside of the box ways to encourage people to come join these industries. Otherwise, we'll have a serious issue in the next 10 years, finding the people that we need to do this work if we don't start growing them.
So it sounds like you're at a bit of a unique situation in that you already have a lot of diversity on your team. Do you feel like they experience challenges in the field that other companies may not, or do you need to support them in different ways? Or can you speak to at all if this is the direction that many companies may be moving? Can you speak to any challenges that either perspective as a manager or that you have encountered them having in their day-to-day job activities?
Yeah, I have a very large subset of my team who are Spanish speaking and who speak very little English in reality. They live in areas of the country where Spanish is actually the first language. So that does pose some challenges. I have to make sure that I have someone in a leadership position who can either translate, or whoever is their supervisor is Spanish speaking. And so I think that's important as the demographic of the company or the country changes, and opportunities need to be afforded to all groups, right? And so as a leader, then I need to make a decision on what are we going to do as a company to ensure that these very talented individuals who are living in certain areas of the country where it's largely Spanish speaking, we have the ability to offer them the same opportunities as everyone else. We need to be able to level the playing field regardless of something that might be holding somebody back or maybe seen as a disadvantage, because I think the capabilities of my staff in those areas are no different than the people who are in the Midwest, for instance, right? They're same intelligence level. They've got the same mechanical aptitude for sure. The only difference is we speak different languages. Communication, English isn't their first language. So communication is sometimes difficult. And so we've largely just pivoted as a company to ensure that we have somebody in the management is able to speak Spanish and to translate when needed. I think it's important that we don't count out the subsets of the population who are different than us or different than whoever's the person hiring them, right? Again, sometimes it takes being a leader who thinks outside the box on making sure that we give the same opportunities to all people, regardless of what could be seen as a disadvantage. I think also women, I think probably part of the disadvantage for women in trades careers is potentially stuff that goes on at home. I think women are sometimes discounted in careers in general because they have a lot of responsibilities at home that sometimes take them away from work. And I think that has largely throughout history or throughout the last 50 years been women being the major caregiver at home. And so we have to come up as companies on ways that we can balance that to allow people to be able to handle life circumstances that come up while at the same time being able to get work done. And so it's just a balance and a flexibility to think through challenges a little differently.
Well, and it does sound like from what you are telling me as a manager, it does take you maybe pausing a moment, looking a bit deeper to find out what really are those person's skills. For example, going beyond the language, they may not be able to express themselves in the same way, or somebody balancing or finding out really what that barrier is. So sometimes the outside factors in people's lives, whether they be language or their personal conditions, may on the surface appear that they may not be fully qualified for the job, whereas stepping back and looking a bit deeper and how can we alleviate those barriers to fully take advantage of that person's capabilities.
Well, I think more than anything as a leader, you have to remember they don't work for me. I work for them. right? I can't do the things that we need to do as a company without the people. The onus is then on me to find ways to ensure that I have the staff and I give the staff the support necessary to excel at their job. That's servant leadership. And so I think it's important that a leader doesn't let their ego get too big to believe that they don't need the people that are supporting them. I 100% couldn't do what I do and couldn't have gotten to where I am today without the support of an entire team here, making sure that we were successful every day. I think that it's very important that then I look for opportunities to give back and help those staff continue to excel in what they're doing. I think that's all part of being a leader, is continuing. As I'm progressing as leader, I need to provide opportunities for them to progress as well, regardless of what their circumstances are.
And thank you for that. And kind of close up our session, how do you envision facilities management and maintenance changing over the next 10 years? I know we've alluded to that a bit in previous questions. What will you be doing to prepare for those changes, either you personally or as a manager?
I think that we're going to see an increased dependence on robotics and automation. We're already seeing that. I think technology is moving at such a rapid pace, and it's probably outpacing the current industry that I'm in, especially on the government side. And I think that you're going to have to continue to be willing to adapt and change as new technologies come along and apply those things in ways, really do our research to find how those things can be implemented into our daily practices that help us from an efficiency standpoint and make us even better than we are today. And also, I think we need to continue to find ways to educate and ensure that our staff today are prepared for those future changes. So start pilot programs within your organization to try something new. Do the extra training, constantly be looking at ways that you can improve the skill set of your staff. Those are the people that are going to carry you through into the future of your company. And if you're not spending the time making sure that your staff are constantly leveling up stronger, your company will be left behind. I mean, the vast majority of companies fail within the first year or two of business. If you've made it to 10 years, your company is probably doing something right. And I think in large part to that is also always constantly looking to what is the future. And our future is rapidly changing at a pace that is sometimes very scary. And you constantly need to be looking for ways to be innovative within the industry that you're working in. I think that's vitally important. And I'm hoping that through this podcast, we can start to share with you how some of the industries that we're involved in are evolving and changing and leveling up and growing into the future. We've got some very fun things going on, and I'm super excited about the implementation of robotics and automation and some of that into what we're doing, because I think it's going to be a stellar opportunity for us to grow and to capture some of the fun things that are coming down the pipeline as far as the industry is concerned, and be at the forefront of driving how this is happening. So I'm excited about the future. I'm excited to see what new technologies can do to help us change the industry while still being able to kind of preserve the history of everything that we're doing and the facilities and the spaces that we work in, but also then lean into more sustainable practices, improve our staff's knowledge base, and all of that goes hand in hand with, I think, just being successful into the future.
Thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us, Tiffany. And I am so excited to continue this conversation and share more of those experiences with others moving forward, because I think there's so many great opportunities and aspects, as we've talked about in the past, to bring everybody into this conversation, because the spaces that we do inhabit are so vitally important to us and so much a part of our daily lives.
Absolutely. And I appreciate the opportunity to be a co-host here at Level Up Stronger. And I'm really looking forward to the next set of episodes that we've planned out, because I think that there is some really fun stuff that we are involved in and some fun people that we're going to be interviewing. So I look forward to what we've started here.
Sounds great. Thank you, Tiffany.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us on Level Up Stronger. For references to resources mentioned in this episode and to receive updates on future podcasts, check us out on social media or at levelupstronger.com. And remember, each time we take risk, educate ourselves, and apply what we've learned to our lives, we level up stronger. Each time we level up stronger, we have the opportunity to reach back and contribute to someone else's success too.